Shegusembatia to bring you this afternoon's news in brief, live here on Channel 44. Well, we'll start with what's happening around us. In Uganda here, yesterday was the 8th of March, the International Women's Day, and here at the Miracle Center Cathedral, Rubaga, there was a worktop of women's gathering, which was in a unique way celebrated and embraced and also put into consideration the men. Pastor Jessica Kayanja brought to the saints in a random sessions of strong prayer characterized by pulling down altars, breaking covenants, and also encouraged women to keep in supplication of the spirit, in supplication and the spirit of prayer. In the same time, she took the honor to invite her mentor, spiritual father, friend, and husband, Pastor Robert Kayanja, who conveyed a message that was calling upon women to pray for guidance on how to raise a king, just like Mary did and other women in the Bible. He also encouraged them to not only stop at praying, but do something on what they have prayed for. He called upon women without any contradictions to participate in politics, enroll in the army, police force, become bankers, managers, and all these are fastened in the Lord, in the principles and ethics of the Lord, and above all, not to stop being innovative despite major oppositions from different people. And in a similar note, Pastor Robert Kayanja, who is the lead pastor of the Rubaga Best Miracle Center Cathedral Church, on his visit on his evangelical visit to South Sudan, met with Salva Kiir, who is the president of South Sudan, and other leaders over peace and a call to end the prevailing conflicts in the East African country. In other meetings, Pastor Kayanja, who was referred by church leaders as a man of God, prayed for South Sudan, Africa's youngest nation, to have peace and end the current conflicts and tribal wars that have forced many citizens to flee the country. Uganda at least hosts over 1.2 million refugees from South Sudan. The meeting with President Salva Kiir took place at the State House in Juba on March the 7th, and this came earlier on the same day when he met the Vice President James Owani Iga at his official residence in Juba. At both visits, Pastor Kayanja handed over his recently published book, Readdressing the Imbalance, Breaking Africa's 400-Year Bondage of Confusion, Stagnation, Poverty, Sickness, and Disease, to both the president and his vice. The book reads about practical actions, points that Africa needs to take to ensure that it rises from the ashes to glories that its ancestors dreamt of. During the meeting with Vice President Iga, Pastor Kayanja said the book has a page written by President Yoweri Museveni, who is the president of Uganda, giving his ideas about challenges faced by Africa. He was sorry to learn that the Vice President had a close relative who was critically sick, and dedicated a special prayer for the President and the Vice, the nation, and all leaders to embrace peace. Pastor Kayanja's visit to South Sudan came a few weeks after Pope Francis and the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, and he preached twice at the 3-day Juba Mega Miracle Crusade, and also addressed religious leaders under the Evangelical Alliance of South Sudan that brings together over 20 churches during a believers' conference at the World Victory Center Church in Gumba, Sharketa, in the western bank of River Nile. On Tuesday, he also addressed guests at a breakfast meeting at the Imperial Royal Hotel in Juba. Early on Monday, Deng Dao Malek, the South Sudan Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and Internal Cooperation, said the country was yearning for peace, blessings, and prayers. Right now, we'll go straight into our international news update. In a rare move, the U.S. Senate has used its right to block Washington, D.C. city laws by halting a criminal reform bill that critics called soft on crime. The Republican-sponsored Senate bill passed by a vote of 81 to 14 yesterday. It overturns the DC Revised Criminal Code Act of 2022, which was passed by the Democratic-controlled City Council, and lowers penalties for some crimes. It marks only the fourth time in the history that Congress has overturned a law of the nation's capital city. The Senate measures passed on Wednesday with the support of 33 Democrats. California residents near Big Sur have been told to stock up on enough supplies to last them at least 2 weeks ahead of a new storm. Intense floods and snow is expected in the state, which is still recovering from extreme weather that left mountain communities under several feet of snow. Experts say the combination of rain and snow melt could lead to extreme flooding. California has already had one of its wettest winters on record. The state has been hit with back-to-back storms in recent weeks. Police have used water cannon and tear gas against protesters in Georgia's capital, Tbilisi, for a second night. The crowds angry at a controversial Russian-style law which would class non-government and media groups as foreign agents if they receive more than 20% of their funds from abroad. Last evening, police pushed back protesters who pulled down a metal barrier outside Parliament. The crowds were ordered to disperse and some people have been injured. Pictures from Georgian TV showed hundreds of rioters, police on the streets late last night wearing helmets and holding shields. At least one police car has been overturned. 4 Americans were kidnapped by armed men last week, soon after crossing into the Mexican border city of Matamoros. 2 of them were killed and 2 survived the ordeal. For now, the Mexican government remains tight-lipped about the motive for the attack. However, the Attorney General's office in the state of Tamaulipas say the theory is that this was a case of mistaken identity and that it was strengthening. Officials would comment on 2 specific suggestions that a drug gang had confused them either for US-based rivals, Haitian drug gang members, or people smugglers. Matamoros is caught between the warring factions of the Gulf Cartel as they battle for control of the so-called plazas, the drug smuggling routes north in the United States. Apparently unwitting, the group of friends from North Carolina drove their minivan straight into the maelstrom, and their ordeal has lasted for 4 days. A former U.S. Marine badly injured in the Afghanistan has described the withdrawal in 2021 as a catastrophe in testimony before Congress. Tyler Vargas Andrews spoke in the first of a series of Republican-led hearings examining the Biden administration's handling of the pullout. He detailed a period of chaos and unpreparedness in the days after the Taliban captured Kabul. Others spoke of enduring trauma and the moral injury of abandoning allies. Sergeant Vargas Andrews, who is age 25, was one of several U.S. military personnel tasked with protecting Kabul's airport on the 26th of August 2021 when 2 suicide bombers attacked crowds of Afghans trying to flee the Taliban during the U.S. evacuation. And finally, at least 9 people have been killed and power at Europe's largest nuclear plant has been lost after Russia launched missiles across Ukraine. The attacks hit cities from Kharkiv in the north of Odessa, in the south of Zhytomyr in the west. Buildings and the infrastructure were hit in Kharkiv and Odessa with power blackouts in several areas. Attacks on the capital city Kyiv are also reported. Ukraine said Russia fired 81 missiles in what is the biggest strike in weeks. The military claimed it successfully shot down 34 cruise missiles and 4 of the 8 Iranian-made Shahed drones were fired. Well, that brings us to the end of this afternoon's news in brief. Thank you for watching Channel 44. We'll be broadcasting what happened in the women's meeting yesterday here at the Miracle Center Cathedral. Pastor Jessica Kayanja led us powerfully in repentance, in praying for our families, in pulling down altars, breaking covenants, and it was powerful. Stay tuned to Channel 44. We'll be rebroadcasting it, and I know your life will not remain the same again. Otherwise, she is coming up next with the Lunch Hour program, a program aimed at lifting us and pushing us ahead and fighting for our families and breaking everything, barriers and hindrances that could be hindering our progress and success. We wish you a very lovely afternoon. God bless you and enjoy the rest of the programming.